Thank you so much, everybody who come along for the kind of second live Advanced Higher Computing Science event. Absolutely thrilled that you joined us here. Hopefully you found the first one useful to you. Just a quick reminder that the session is getting recorded and it will be available on the STACS Connected and the website, along with all the kind of session materials. And we've got a swag bag for you, so there's going to be lots of materials coming out to help you with the Advanced Higher and any additional resources that we create. We're kind of hoping you're going to be able to interact with us a little bit, so please give us our feedback at the feedback boards. We're going to have some interaction slides as well, but as well as that, just kind of let us know what resources of ours you've been using, what's been useful to you. Share your thoughts with us. You can either email us at hello@stacs.scot, or of course you can be using the STACS Connected just to tell us if what we're doing is useful to you. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you're all kind of used to the Miro board, yeah?
Hi, David. Sorry, there's only 4 or 5 people on the Miro. If you scroll up, you will see that I put the link in the chat, and there's also the password of upskilling. So if you can come over and join us and just let us know.
I'm presenting at the moment, so if you want to follow me.
Yep, you follow that link.
Fiona. Yep. So
brilliant.
If you should be able to see me, and you can just follow me, and that way you'll move more, when we move on.
Mm-hmm. So regarding use of the Miro, once you're on, you can actually switch off other people's cursors in the top right. That's quite useful if there's too many cursors on your screen. Yep, we also have a cursor park at the side, so you can move your cursor to the side just so you're not kind of obstructing anything that's on the slide. We're going to ask that you don't move any objects on the screen unless you are asked. We may ask you to interact with some of the objects at some point. So we also have some amazing reactions. So if you go into the Miro, I'm going to do one just now. I'm going to do a wow. Can you show a little kind of reaction at the bottom of the Miro just to kind of show that it's working for you?
The main thing probably for everybody is the swag bag of takeaway resources at the end, which is full of very practical resources for your pupils to be able to get examples to practice. And hopefully some of the information that we've summarized relating to course reports and things will be useful to us as teachers. Yeah, we are going to look at intro, course report, typical topics that we find in the exam, the integration, because we find that was caught my pupils out, caught a lot of us out in 2024. We're going to look at the big question, so the big coding question, which of course puts fear in all of us, and then our swag bag of resources. So we're on to the, would you like to introduce yourself on a post-it note and tell us where the school you're from. Tell us where you're from.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I will move our slide on now.
So we thought we would just begin by going over the structure of the course. We know that, a lot of the people that attend these sessions, they've been doing Advanced Higher for a wee while, but we're also aware that we've got a new person in tonight who's going to be teaching it, and that it will also be getting used future as part of STACS. So the course, like all computing courses, is made up of both theory and practical. The theory element is made up of 3 units. Notice computer systems isn't there, so it's still 3 units following on from National 5 and higher. We've got our software design development, we've got our web design development, and we've got our database design and development.
So does that make
systems out, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so is the course similar to the kind of National 5 and higher, and that there's no optional unit?
Yep.
There's an optional unit.
There is the option. Yes, there is the optional unit. As with the National 5 and the higher, the pupils are expected to cover all of the units, but in the exam, they would pick either to do the database section or they would do the web design and development section. The only thing that we need to know about, we need to be aware of, is that in the exam, they need to know about the integration in both sections, and we're going to cover that later.
Okay, okay. I mean, we know that the integration was highlighted in the course report is something that we need to look at. So like the project is like 80 marks, and hopefully everyone knows that that the template that the people should be spending approximately about 40 hours on it.
That's right, and honestly, we're looking forward to see these amazing projects coming in. We were talking about it earlier. We've only got 4 weeks to go, and we'll be away marking them all. So
I can't wait for that 180-page one to come in.
That's going to Morag. Right.
Absolutely.
So if we move on to the next frame, and that's going to show us the skills that are assessed and the number of marks per skill, which is quite good. So you can see here, first thing to notice is that our skills are all from, they're the analysis, design, implementation, testing and evaluation from our software development cycle. And these
what pupils are already familiar with, isn't it?
And what we need to know is that all of these skills are going to be sampled across the whole course content. So by that, I mean, you're not just going to get design in a database question, implementation in a software question. You can expect them to be across them all. And the other thing is that most of the questions are all going to be set in scenarios, and the students should be relating their answers to the scenario as best they can.
There's quite a lot of reference made to that in the course reports, that pupils have been a bit too sort of generic in their answers, haven't they?
Just memorising, almost like memorising definitions, isn't it, Fiona?
Yeah. I'd rather than relating it back to the context of the question itself.
Now, the bit I like here in this one is, now, especially at this time, we can tell you exactly how many marks are for design and projects, how many are for implementation. But look, we can see how many marks are going towards design in the actual question paper and how many are going for implementation. So the pupils can have a good idea of what they can expect in the paper.
Yes. And it's summarising the breakdown for them very nicely there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Fiona, passing back to you.
On this next one here, we've got a wee summary of what to expect, what people should expect in the question paper. So I've taken just the past 3 years with the new format of paper and just broken it up to show where the questions have fallen. You'll see that there's some things there that are reliable to, that have pretty much come up every year in recent times. So, and I've just split it up. We've got programming STD question areas on the top 2/3, and then we've got the areas relating to database, the integration, which is present in both database and web, and then the web sort of coverage down the bottom there. And I'll let everybody have a minute there just to have a look over this.
Definitely seems to be a pattern of topics there, Fiona, especially, something like the OOPS question, which we know comes up every year.
Yep, absolutely. And some of these, like the big question, we will come on to in more detail, in a few minutes. Also, the integration area, which is down here with the DDD to WDD connection and the sort of integration part, we're coming to that later as well. But things like that are dependable, your object-oriented question,
the linked list question,
linked list, either single or double, as you can see that come up for the past 3 years. The advanced higher data structure, the 2D array, is going to be in there. They will need to be familiar with UML, use case diagrams and class diagrams, of course. So that's an important one. And the use case diagram has come up as part of a question with other things. And of course, the class diagram is integral. It's a key part to the object-oriented. And in a minute, I'm going to refer back to that from the course report. Basically, point out the fact that pupils have not fully sort of looked at their class diagram and taken on board when they've gone to answer that object-oriented question. Obviously, you've got your advanced higher algorithms, which are going to be in there. We'll come back to talk about insertion sort, because that has been the sort of slightly weaker of the three of them, I think, in terms of particularly in the evidence from the big question from the last 2 years. Testing, as you can see, has been there every year. And if you look at the testing, you'll see from the question numbers, question 7, question 10, or question 8 and question 11, that shows that testing was examined in the context of either the database section or the web section. And you'll find that pupils will be doing one or the other, but the questions will have a similar, what would you say, a similar focus?
It's the common themes, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that analysis, testing and evaluation and maintenance, so that can be across the 3 units.
Exactly. So, and it's the paper's designed so that it will be very similar in terms of if you're asked that for the database candidates, then there'll be something very similar but related to the web side of things.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The same as you can see for evaluation 2022. It came up in both question 8 and question 11. And maintenance in 2023, again, made an appearance in both the database and the web sections. This next one is from the 2024 course report, and I've taken this one. This was the advice for the future. Now, I know we've all got access, and I'm sure we've all studied it, but I thought it was quite useful just maybe to draw these points back out and have them all summarised as part of this. So just running from the top, and I'm not going to read them all out to you and bore you all to death, but basically encouraging candidates to indicate the intended data types, particularly for like my candidates where we're coding in Python with dynamic data typing, then they need to make sure that they're indicating their intended data types on this.
So if they just put in comment lines, that's...
They can do, absolutely, yes.
Right? Just comment lines saying what they are, then okay, internal commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Second one, maintenance. And Debbie, we see this every year, don't we?
You said maintenance, I put my head in my hands. Just to say that they do, they go straight in 10, 5 and higher, and they forget to mention what their 3 advanced higher ones, don't they? They forget their adaptive, corrective and perfective. Exactly.
So we need to make sure that they're familiar with all 3 of them. They're using the correct terminology for that. And they are looking at any costs associated with the maintenance as well. That's something they quite often overlook. Okay, this next one probably goes without saying. Make sure our candidates are familiar with all types of testing. Component, end user, final testing, integrative, usability based on prototypes, and our favourite thing, personas.
Yeah.
I mean, the paper doesn't give as much scope for us being entertained by the personas, does it? But on a serious note, then it's something that we just need to make sure that they're familiar, that they're comfortable with, that they can relate to the context of the question when they're answering it. In our object-oriented question, make sure that they're familiar with all of their object-oriented terminology for everything that's covered in the course. It's good to get them looking at examples, and that's maybe where some of the swag bags or takeaways can come in here. Get them used to looking at the squirrel, which is how their questions will be worded. looking at their class diagram, which particularly looking at the methods that are available, and pay attention to what's in the class diagram and the sections of code that they'll be presented with, because they will be given some of that and then they will be asked to write some more themselves, won't they?
Mhm.
So use the information that they're given in the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
last point there, polymorphism, override methods, just it's worth drawing their attention to that one as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on, database and web questions that came from the course report last year. Surrogate keys on databases. We've seen that, Debbie, when we've been marking, haven't we? That their description of the benefits of using surrogate keys have sometimes been a little bit weak. So
Yes.
it's a small point, but it's marks we don't want them to not be able to access.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It should be an easy mark for them, so we need to make sure they secure it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Moving down, the benefits of a surrogate key to replace a compound key. We also draw attention now to their familiarity with design and implementation of HTML forms. And basically, that's higher knowledge, isn't it? HTML forms. But even our database candidates, we want them to have some basic familiarity with that, don't we?
Because they have to for the integration.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. Subqueries, candidates hate it, but if they're doing database, then they definitely need to get some practice in on it. A little bit more on the implementation of HTML forums and attention to the fact that in the specimen paper there was an example, and we in fact are also going to talk about it just shortly. Coming on to web, session variables. Although candidates last year could explain why a session variable was necessary, on the example of the question, they couldn't all access the marks for describing the use made of it in this particular question. So highlights the fact they probably need a bit more practice on that. Last of all, in the web section, PHP coding, MySQL functions for the advanced higher level. Again, that comes back to what you talked about earlier, Debbie. Did you mention about a help sheet?
Yep, we were thinking about making up a help sheet for some of the integration stuff.
Absolutely.
We can do ones for PHP as well. If
That's what I was thinking, that could be quite useful as well. Well, yeah. Hopefully other people will agree that could be something that is a good takeaway. Okay, let's move on. Debbie, this one is over to you here on the makeup code question.
Right, so we're jumping back to the big code question. So this is the last question in the software development section of the paper. And before we talk about it, first thing that potentially, it used to be when before COVID, this used to be the last question in the paper because it was deemed to be the trickiest question. And so what we think is, or what I advise my pupils to do, is to do all of software except this question. If they're lacking a bit of confidence, go and do their section 2 and then come back. And that's just for anybody who lacks that wee bit of confidence with doing their coding in an exam.
Absolutely. It is involved and it does take quite a lot of thinking through. But it could also destroy a bit of confidence, couldn't it? I mean, certainly just my confidence.
And that's what we don't want to happen. When we sit and go through this, you're going to see that it's the questions, different contexts, but they're actually quite similar. So let's have a wee look at the similarities. So all I've done is down the left-hand side, I have taken from the course content at the SDD implementation section, that's everything from that area of the course content specification. So in the middle of the grid, just to explain this little box in here. Now, the way it reads is, it says, you read and understand design of solutions to problems at this level using the following design techniques. Now, this is because when you look at the specification, that's what it says about design. So that you know what pupils actually have to be able to design, you have to come back and look at implementation. So I'm hoping that makes sense. Can I get a wee bit of interaction? Is that making sense? It doesn't list everything you've got to be able to design. You have to come and look at the implementation section so that you know what you have to design. Because I remember when I first looked at it, I was like, so what have they got to design? And then it was like, all right, I get it now. But it just took me a wee bit to get my head around it. So that's in there to remind everyone of that. So let's start at the data structures up the top. So we can see that we've got 2D arrays, we've got records, we've got arrays of records, and in fact in 2019 we got a 2D array of records. So the last 2 years, you can see that X's have been marked in beside records and arrays of records. So that's because they came up in the exam. However, the pupils were given the structure. They didn't have to implement them in the exam.
Okay, I see that was, I see that last year was the first time pupils were asked to write the design for a connection in an exam.
Yes, they were. You can see that here,
Yep.
6-8, and it was worth 3 marks.
Okay.
And that was for writing the pseudocode for doing a connection and running the query. Interestingly though, if you look at the marking scheme, it says run the SQL query to get data from the database. After it says the connection, that's what it says. It doesn't mention the type of SQL statement.
All right. Okay. So, like, kind of going forward, should we be like working on ensuring that pupils mention the type of SQL statement?
Yeah, that would absolutely be beneficial to do. If it's a select statement they're doing, let's have them say run an SQL, a select query, and mention the columns and just from what table. Just getting more information from them, because it is their design, so they should be being, that wee bit more formal with what's happening and not quite as vague.
Okay, just to kind of give that a little bit more information.
Just to reiterate on that, Debbie, they would only be expected to work with one table there.
Yes.
Right.
So because this isn't the database section,
yes,
they would only ever have one table.
Right.
Which is kind of like higher knowledge rather than kind of the advanced higher stuff.
So it'd be higher, it would be higher knowledge, but with one table.
Yep. Okay.
Right, got that? Right. So if we go down, we can see that the last couple of years, there's been a couple of standard algorithms in this part of the question. Wasn't before in 2022-19 of the spec, but we've had a couple of the insertion sorts that Fiona was talking about, and we've had a binary search. But the main thing here is we can see where the majority of the marks are, and they're all down the bottom at this section to do with the array and the manipulation of the array. And it's coming under the read and explain code, but I've just put in some assigning variables to data structure, traversing the data structure, manipulating the data structure. And we can see that that's where the majority of the marks are really going.
Yes, that's where they're picking up. Yeah.
So that's where we need to build confidence in our young people for tackling these questions. So now we've got a wee idea of the makeup of it. Will we go and look at the course reports?
So this was the 2023 course report. The comments particularly related to the big question, which was question 5. Now, Debbie, the question 5 in 2023 was the rainfall one, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So this was the rainfall question, and it was for 16 marks. And here are 4 comments that I've picked out. So most candidates attempted all parts of question 5, which was great. resulting in most candidates being able to access at least some marks for the question. So, and that's a good approach. They should be tackling it. Mostly I get my candidates' expectations to be, don't be expecting, this is the hard question, don't be expecting and disappointed that if you think you're not going to get full marks on this one, you're going to tackle it all with the knowledge that you will pick up as many marks as possible.
Yes.
Yes.
So on this one, many candidates correctly identified the need to traverse the readings array, which is good. Traversing an array of course or an array of records is not new knowledge at advanced higher, so that's good that they're feeling more confident with that. And they also were able to traverse the rainfall array as well. This was the one where there was 2 arrays of records, wasn't there?
Yes.
And you were inserting values from one into the other one, I think, weren't you?
I'm sure that.
Searching for like the local authority and doing some manipulation and calculation on that, weren't you?
That's
So,
right.
yeah, most candidates gained marks for the binary search in this one and the content of their solution. Again, thumbs up for that one. The insertion sort, however, caught a lot of candidates out and they didn't access the marks for it. So that was definitely a challenge there. And in fact, going on to the 2024 one, the insertion sort was again a challenge for them.
Right. So that's definitely something we need to be working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So other things brought up this, the big question in 2024, question 6 was the mammals one. It was only, I'm saying only, it's 13 marks. It's still a substantial amount of marks.
Yes, all that.
Oops, my computer wants to restart at the moment, so we'll just put paid to that one. So yeah, advice for this one was, kind of goes without saying, but our candidates should be familiar with working with their advanced higher algorithms, with their binary search, their bubble sort, and maybe a bit more on the insertion sort. The candidates were certainly, this was a design aspect, they were certainly found it very challenging to do their pseudocode for the insertion sort. But again, candidates that tried it did in fact receive some marks for incomplete design on it. So more of that, please.
Still sometimes, Fiona, tell me if you agree that one of the, I'm going to say the silly places, and I don't mean that because it sounds quite cheeky, but one place where students are sometimes still losing marks is they do their array dot the record variable, and then they do the I. They're putting the I after the variable and not
the
after
index.
Yes, and I don't know, you would think that they would have retained that from higher, but I guess they struggle a little bit at higher with the arrays of records as well, don't they? When they're having to work with them and manipulate them. Yes, we've got a question
from Maggie.
Yes.
Hi, Maggie.
You know, if it's design and they write their array of records that way with the index at the end, does that take off for that?
If it's design, they won't be penalised for incorrect use of arrays or something, as long as they're indicating what's going on. What's a common error in there, though, is that they'll forget methods. You know, like somewhere, Maggie, they won't mention it to access something. If it's an O or something, they're not accessing the method, or they've gone for, they've not indicated, they've just said it's an array and we want to use array item 5, but there's a record and they've not told us which, they've not indicated in their pseudocode what they're wanting to do. So it's not a case of penalising the code, it's more a case of penalising an incomplete design. If that makes any sense.
It's not fully indicated what they're intending to do.
And what if they write their design in code? Because that's a struggle for some. I find that I'm saying this is saying design, so I don't want to see code, but some of them just go straight to code.
Yeah, that's okay. We're happy to see anything.
Okay. Yes.
We're happy to see anything and remark anything. If it's code, we ignore it. If it's design, it's like, we're interchangeable. We wouldn't penalise that.
We mark the logic, don't we, Morag? It's the logic we mark.
It's the logic. It's the logic we're looking for. Yeah, and particularly in the big question, it's more about us sort of thinking. It's more there's a sort of logical thought process in the head, and that they're communicating that with us somehow. Then that's what we're looking for.
That's great. Thanks.
It's not like in the project where when we're looking for pseudocode at the design stage and we see code that's backward engineered and
that's a different ball game. Yeah, that's a different ball game in there. Yeah, because that's a clear distinction. There's a clear one in the exam. Under exam pressure, we wouldn't be that fussy. We wouldn't penalise.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for sitting in there. So overall, thumbs up. Candidates coped quite well with problem-solving questions. So the big question, requiring them to design algorithms for unseen tasks and processes, such as those in this big question last year in question 6. The advice was to encourage candidates to attempt these more challenging questions to get practice in. Again, we're coming back to our swag bag there, aren't we, guys?
Yeah, we'll get to that,
yeah, David and Debbie on that one. Because the more practice they get, then we're hoping that they'll be able to up the marks that they can access. And again, encouraging them not to be held back because they think they haven't been, it's not quite good enough. No, absolutely, have a go at it. Do as much as you can. We want to see your thinking on this question. Okay, let's move on. All right, so this was a little one I put together, which was to encourage my kids to look at the overview when they tackled the big question, and when they're met with the question, hopefully they've got everything else out of the way, and then they've got a little bit of headspace to focus on it. And first thing for them to think about is what's their data structure that they're using here. We've got probably a 2D array or an array of records, possibly also with an array, as we saw from the overview of the big question, what had come up in it. Then look at the individual parts of the question. So there'll be multiple parts to it. And as they move through it, think about their algorithms that the question is basically wanting them to demonstrate their understanding of and to show how they can apply that to the context of this question. So we're looking, think about their advanced higher algorithms, which ones are they needing to use, which ones they need to use on that particular bit. That should then get it in their head going, right, okay, I'm doing an insertion sort, for instance. And of course, there's likely to be use of applying higher algorithms because we're looking at the logic, their design, their thought processes for this. So the higher algorithms will also come into it because there'll be some data manipulation that they'll be needing to do. So they shouldn't just forget about their higher algorithms that they've worked with and should be familiar with. Okay, I'm going to move this one on. What we already alluded to here, obviously advice from reports, advice from their teachers, learn their standard algorithms. Practice using them with data structures, whether it be an array of records or the advanced higher 2D array. Practice even using them on 1D arrays as well. Let's just practice them. On the day, leave the big question to us, as we said. That's what I always tell them. Attempt every part, have a go at it. You want to access as many marks as possible. We're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for the logic and the thought process behind it for problem solving. And yeah, I did this in. Remember their dot notation for arrays of records. Okay. And of course, they can still use slides. They can still use which they've probably learned or made use of from National 5 onwards. And my third years use this. Sandra Angela introduced this to me, and thanks to her for that, because I still use it, and I'm sure some colleagues do, and it's no bad thing. It can still be applied, even advanced higher, to help them step through as they go through their thought process and their logic. Okay, we're now on to, we would like to get you guys to give us some advice here. We're looking for, amongst other things, what advice do you pass on to your pupils? Because it's highly likely that colleagues, other people, that we all want to share on that. So we'd love if you could pass anything on in these post-its. Look at squirrel the paper, friends. Yes, particularly well. I know that's not the big question, but seeing the object-oriented question, quite a lot to be gained by studying that carefully, isn't there? There's a lot of hints in there.
Yeah, definitely. And again, when we talk about object orientation, just to kind of go back to what Morag was mentioning, I think one of the issues is my hires, when they're doing an array of records in Python, they do it very much like they're setting up a class. But yet they can access that bit of information directly, you know, and higher, they're just going straight into that bit of information. Then when you go into kind of advanced higher and you start teaching object oriented, you're like, no, you need to have you need to have your method in order to access that property.
Yeah, you're using methods as well, not just the structure here.
They keep forgetting that. They keep going directly for it. And I'm like, no, you need the method. And what really annoys me when they're doing the object orientation questions, a lot of times, like, the method's been set up for them, you know, the names are there. And we just need the pupils to use the structure in the question. We're not asking you to invent a new structure. The structure and the method names, the property names, it's all there. So please
study the class diagram. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Study the class diagram. Yeah, actually, one of mine a while ago had got herself completely mixed up because she was using arrays of records in Python, and because it is declared as a class, as it were.
Yep.
She then thought she was doing object-oriented programming.
Yeah, not quite yet.
No, exactly. She was only using the array of records structure. If stuck, move on. Yeah, absolutely.
And see, do the questions you find easier first. Absolutely, we mark them in any order they come in. So yeah, do your easier ones first.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of still looking at the big question here now. I've been using this for my classes this week to kind of test this out. So I have the big question from last year. This is from 2024, question number 6. Have a little look at it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but have a also look at the grid that we've got around here. So on the right-hand side of the page, we've got all the data structures that they could be asked about. And then on the left-hand side, we've got, they've got the higher algorithms, advanced higher algorithms, and we've also got integration down there at the bottom. That's some of the things that they should be expected to potentially apply to the data structures. So I'm kind of going to let one of the cats out the bag for the swag bag. We have collated all the big questions from all the past papers from 2016 onwards, and including the specimen paper. So I've literally just given that to my class, and I said to the pupils, okay, in order to kind of ground yourself in the question and to find an angle into the question, all I'm going to ask you to do, I'm not even going to ask you to attempt these questions yet. I want you to read through every single big question from 2016 and just identify what is the data structure you needed for this question, and what algorithm do you think that you're going to have to use to solve, to answer this question. So I'm going to ask you to do this activity with us just now. Now, have a little look at the question. So as I said, this is question 6 from the 2024 paper. I'm definitely not going to read it out. We should say a wildlife society stores data. So I'll let you have a little read at that. Now, what I want you to do, you can pick any colour. You can pick your favourite colour if you want. And I'm just going to do it just now. I'm going to pick up a red dot here. Hopefully that works. And I can, if I wanted to vote for records, I could leave my red dot right there. I might delete that later on. I'm not looking at the questions now. And then if I'll stick to the same colour just now, if I wanted to vote for linear search, I would pull up that red dot and I would leave that at linear search. So all I'm asking you to do, we're going to look through the whole of question 6 from last year. So I want you to just have a look at 6A. I'm going to delete my dots while you read that. And once you've come up with an answer, can you vote for your data structure and the algorithm that is most likely to be needed here?
giving that to your pupils and getting them to go through all the questions without attempting to answer them, just by simply analysing them and classifying them like this, seems to me a really good way of sort of reducing stress on them, because you're introducing those questions and getting them to start thinking about them while they don't feel too pressurised to suddenly start designing their answers.
Yeah, exactly. From my kind of viewpoint, it's kind of allowed them to approach these questions and just step closer to them, you know, and just kind of get their head around a really small aspect of it, rather than trying to bite off the whole thing. And that alone just kind of makes them chill out a little bit and just kind of approach it in a better way. So, okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah, Brian. I think we've maybe voted on that one. We've got here. So, okay, if we move on to the next, move on to the next one. Yeah, we'll now take your time to read through part B, and do the same again for me, please. If you can vote for the data structure and the algorithm that is necessary here. Now, what you'll notice is actually
the one that challenged people, wasn't it?
Yeah, the question often tells you this, but even just the pupils going through that, you know, we always tell the pupils, you know, underline this and underline that, and sometimes they don't. So this is just another technique that they can use to kind of get a little bit closer to the question. So if you can read that, if you vote for the data structure and the algorithm.
Yeah, because it can be a bit overwhelming, can't it? It's a lot of information to take in. They're bombarded with it, aren't they?
Yeah. And the clue is very much in the question here when it does mention the incomplete design of an insertion sort. But I even think just like this kind of narrows these big questions down. The pupils now know they can be asked about these, you know, 5 data structures, and they can be asked about these algorithms. And it just means even for studying it, they don't feel they need to study all of programming in order to just kind of prepare for these questions. The notes, it just kind of narrows that down a little bit.
Well, that's right. If you were just doing this top level analysis, surely that would then encourage you to say, right, that one is using an insertion sort. I'm going to go back and study that again and just practice it.
Exactly.
Without even tackling this question itself, I'll just practice the insertion sort algorithm.
Okay, thanks so much. Here we go.
I'm cracking under the pressure and I'm not even having to answer these questions.
Know how the pupils feel now.
Exactly.
Now, one thing I have been saying here is sometimes not all questions are requiring, you know, an algorithm as such. It's not always like a strict, you know, a bubble or an insert. Sometimes it is just a little bit of programming and moving things around and shimmying things about. Right. Yeah, that's it as well. So I'm kind of letting them know that. So although most of the time they will be expected to kind of apply their knowledge to one of the algorithms, sometimes it can just be a little bit of moving things around and changing a bit of data.
That's back to that the wee grid that I made up, isn't it, David, where a lot of those parts were coming down from just traversing that array and manipulating it.
Yeah,
exactly. The knowledge that they already have from higher level.
But still doing that, you use the slides.
Yes, yes. And of course, in the stress of the exam situation, a complex question, it's easy for them to lose sight that some of these bits they could probably tackle at the end of higher, couldn't they, just for some of the manipulation bits?
Yeah. Yep, especially the arrays of records.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for your votes there. And the one last one, just to finish off question 6, I don't want to even only do half the question. So if we look at the last part of question 6 here, have a read. I think if I remember correctly, this was the big one. So at the moment, when I've kind of been doing this in class, I've had a pupil who has been just avoiding these big questions, and that's now 2 prelims, and they've missed out. And if you think about that, that could be 12 marks. Now, 12 marks can be pretty much 20% of the written paper, and for a pupil to kind of do that, that's almost self-sabotage. I've really been trying hard to try and build up their confidence with these big questions, and so far this method has started to work. just I'm noticing he's not as scared to make mistakes, and I'm trying to tell him that like the worst thing you can do is just miss it out. It's okay if you don't get full marks. Like you just need to go in and get what marks you can, and I feel like this method has given him an avenue to do that.
I think the fact it's doing this with class, the anonymity of it. You know, you're going to have the pupils who are maybe a bit lacking in confidence, having, you know, that confidence to put out, because nobody's going to know if they've got it wrong. I do like this stop voting.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks so much for your votes there. We're just going to the next one here. Can you just let us know, how do you think about that approach? Is it something that you would use? Is there a way to improve it? I mean, we're using Miro just now because this is what we've been using for STACS. Is there another digital tool that you think we could use to potentially get pupils to approach questions that way, just to get a discussion going in class? Yeah, hope to use that. Yeah. Peer deck. Oh, okay. I'm going to look at that.
Yep, you have to pay for that one though. But
right, okay.
I really like my peer deck.
Yeah.
I don't use that at all.
No.
It's good. See, for the virtual campus, because they give you instant feedback. So it encourages that online. Just like as part of doing this, we could possibly put a Miro together that people could use with more of these questions. Is that something people would be interested in?
One thing I was going to add here, and the big question is, when the revised advanced higher came into being, I suppose when advanced higher computing science came into being, to be exact, this question, like the big programming question, was designed to be problem solving. It was designed to be something that candidates were going to be presented with something that they maybe hadn't seen before, that they wouldn't necessarily be able to predict, might use some of their algorithms, but they were having to problem solve and think through. So you see that in the calculation that came out in the last thing, you're having to think and use the linear search to parse the array, but actually apply some logical thinking. It is kind of designed for that as well. So there might be standard algorithms in it. There might not be. It depends on how creative the writers are.
And the answers we get from the children are more creative than anything we could ever come up with.
Absolutely, they're stunning. They're amazing, aren't they? Always.
Their thoughts are phenomenal, because we always think we know what we're going to get from them, and then they're just brilliant.
They are. They're absolutely brilliant, and it's amazing to see. It's always amazing to see. It's always heartening to see, isn't it? When you actually see the way some pupils have tackled it, it's lovely, and it gives me a warm glow.
That's because we don't often see a lot of creativity, because it's all about do this. This question allows that creativeness to come right through.
It does. It allows them to think a little bit laterally and sort of take, right, here's the knowledge I have. How am I going to apply that knowledge? How can I use that knowledge to show what I know? And it's always about showing what they know. It's always about that. And that's why we try and get across this thing about do it. Try it. Try all parts of the question.
Yes.
That must be incredibly difficult to mark. When you've got pupils doing it all different ways.
Yeah. I buy a pad every year, Maggie, for marking projects, and one for this as well, because whatever they give you, you then have to sit and work it out to see if it's going to work.
Very consuming.
But it's okay, because it is enjoyable to see the amazing ways they come up with.
I know.
I like that one.
Yeah. It must be very interesting, rather just tick tick tick. You really got to stop and think about what they're doing.
Okay, so we've got the course report for the integration question. 2 points here. So for database, ensure that candidates are familiar with skills, knowledge and understanding needed to design and implement HTML forms. And there's an example in the specimen paper, question 7. For web design, ensure candidates are familiar with skills, knowledge and understanding needed to design and implement SQL queries. And again, there's an example highlighted in the specimen question paper.
I've taken this out of the spec paper. Can you guys remind everyone that in September, there is sometimes updates to the course specimen, but you should be checking in with SQA. So this came out last year, or was it the year before, just to remind everybody that integration, if you're doing the database section, you should expect some sort of integration with the web. And if you're doing the web section, you should expect some sort of integration with the database. And as you can see what it says here, this is all straight from the specification. The integration of technologies is central to the course. Teachers and lecturers should consider candidates' previous experience in database design and development and web design development when planning delivery. This will ensure candidates are prepared for the integration that is required for the question paper. So this part here is what web stuff your candidates would need to do if they were doing the database section. And it's mainly forms, right? It's mainly they have to be able to implement a form in the exam, and they have to be able to do the design for a wireframe. And there is also the read and explain code that makes use of that above HTML. So we need to make sure that we've passed that information on to our candidates. And then we have the web section. So if your candidates are doing the web section, they have got to be able to do an insert, an update and a delete, National 5 level from the course.
With one table?
With one table. And with the select statements, they have to be able to do a from, where. They have to have the logical operators and or less than, greater than, equals. They can be asked to do an order on a single field, but there is just the aggregate functions coming from higher. So your max, your min, average, count and sum. Notice again, it's just on one table. This is what our candidates need to be able to do. And we know that that did throw some people last year. So this is just to make sure that we're getting this information out there to everybody. So if you could give me a wee thumbs up for this one, would it be of benefit? Do you think it would be of benefit if we make up some cheat sheets for next week? So we'll just have one that's got the SQL and we've got one that's got the web with examples of what they should be able to do in the exam. They're not ready for just now. We're all tied down with coursework and just at the moment, but I can certainly get that put together to go out to children for the end of next week and put it into the into STACS. And over to you, David.
Yes, so this is the bit that we're trying to get together. So we're trying to get as much stuff together as possible and get it out to you, especially, and allows you to kind of get it out to the pupils. So we have a big zip file. We are hoping to put that on STACS Connected, I'm going to say potentially tomorrow afternoon. That's the plan. So we have all the past papers from the SQA from 2016 all the way up to 2024, and we also have the specimen paper. What we've also done with that is I've went through and collated all the big questions. So we have a resource with all the big questions kind of separated, and we've done the same for the marking scheme as well. We've got the marking schemes for all the papers as well, and we've also had a wee go at writing our own big style questions. They might not be as brilliant or as thorough, but we're going to try their best to make it as good as we could, so you have even more big questions for your pupils to work through. And we also have some advanced higher standard algorithm practice, and that's all coming out in a big zip file, and we hope to post that tomorrow, if that's okay. Yeah.
I also found, please don't laugh at this, all of my P2016 data structure questions from all the
Surely you're not old enough to have any examples from
Oh,
Mhm.
love you, Fiona.
26.
and all the standard algorithms from back then as well. It's a massive book, and obviously won't be ready before we go for the exams, but I will get that put into STACS before the summer holiday, and people will have that for next year.
Happy
as well.
days. Great. So we'll try and get as much out to you as you can, but just please keep your eye on STACS Connected, and we'll continue just to feed resources on that as much as we can.
Absolutely. Once exam leave comes round, we should have a wee bit more time as well, shouldn't we?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Focus on producing some more swag for the
Yeah.
next year.
Debbie, see
Yes.
I'd written a whole lot of reference language, OO stuff for my classes. And I passed that on to you, but I can certainly, I've got a wee bit of time, so I can certainly pull that into a format that could go out to people. There's about 3 or 4, maybe 5. You know what I'm like when I get started. That it's just reading.
If you're
reference
happy,
language.
if you're happy to do that, I was going to add that to the bundle for
Yeah,
doing
use it. That's why I
Yeah.
passed it on.
Uh-huh.
It's about sitting on my laptop doing nothing.
Yep, that is in with the bundle. So yes, that will absolutely get done.
Yeah.
I'll connect with you about that if you don't mind.
Yes, no problem. Yeah, happy to
Brilliant,
share that.
thank you. Brilliant, thanks, Morag. So this is our slides. We always put this one in just for a bit of feedback on how you feel tonight went. Was there things that we did that you liked? What can we improve on? What should we add? What else do you need? And was there anything we did that you think we didn't really need that? Maybe we don't need that in future. So if you could just give us a little bit of feedback, because we need to make these sessions as worthwhile as possible for everybody. As we move into the next session, just looking at UMLs, I agree, because it's something that I know that I need to develop better.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely.
Just through interest, David, just to get a conversation going, what tools do you use when you're doing your UMLs in class?
Do you know something? I've actually been using Miro.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
There is good symbols in Miro. I've noticed the symbols all there. I have noticed that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I normally have like the kids just Google for a good 15 minutes, and then once somebody finds one that works, we announce it to the class, then everybody uses that. And unfortunately, I feel like I can't bank it because the authority might block it 1 month and 1 year, so I never feel like I've got a solid resource for UML that stays the same.
See,
I know, it gets locked down and that's it gone.
Yeah.
the working through the solutions of the big questions, something that we did consider doing was actually recording us doing some and then making them available not just to staff but for actually
Pupils.
share them with the kids. I've got videos for everything. I'm happy. I don't care. I'm happy just to say there's some videos, please take them. So yeah, I could easily get some of them done for the kids going away for the Easter holiday. So our next session is going to be sometime in May. We still get down there saying to be decided, but I think we're still feeling that we would like to look at the hardware and we'd like to look at some PHP.
Yeah.
That's our thoughts, isn't it, David? Because I know that this year I've been having some problems, and we know that we're having issues with authorities and what we can do with our servers.
Yeah.
Just admit that you've broken all your hard drives.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, about the bush here.
Yeah, I think here that a lot of teachers kind of look at advanced higher and just say, my authority will never let me do PHP, or looking at their equipment in their faculty and they're saying, how do I set up PHP on this equipment? I'll never be allowed to do that. And before you know it, the advanced higher with ever in that establishment just doesn't get off the ground. Now, the fact that many people...
I know on my network at school, all the ports are locked down.
Yeah,
so I mean, not run a virtual web server in school.
Yeah, I mean, I know that every teacher almost needs to find their own workaround for their own environment, and that's a lot of work. You don't have geography teachers going to another school and then figuring out how to teach their course based on, you know, the room that they're in. But that's something that kind of falls on computing teachers, and especially with advanced higher.
It's using a Raspberry Pi, and
Yeah.
that brings us on nicely to what you're doing, David.
Yes, yeah. So I've kind of been using Raspberry. Well, maybe that's for the next session, but yeah, I've been using Raspberry
Absolutely.
Pis
Yeah.
to try and kind of just get outside the local authority network. I've set up kind of local servers on that, and there's been a few people asking how we've done that and how do the pupils use it and how does the projects work. And it's from my notice, there's been no issues at all this year, and there has been issues with me trying to set this up. But I do feel maybe we're preaching to the wrong people, because the fact that you're in this session probably means you've got advanced higher up and running. So you've maybe already solved this problem. I maybe think the next session is about the people who don't even consider doing advanced higher because they're too intimidated by that problem. So we think that's what the next solution, the next project might be on the next session. But please, if there's other things, definitely we've got UML. I think that'd be a great session. But if there's anything else that you think that we should be covering with regards to advanced higher, please just let us know.
Absolutely. But thank you everybody for joining and for all your feedback and comments.